We've done a lot of character quests this year. Leon Kuwata, Rita and Runt, Clay and Blabberta. Hey, so why not do some more, right? I just watched a lot of South Park recently, mostly because of the pandemic movies. I thought they were very well done, surprisingly emotional, and overall some of the best that South Park has ever been. That's why I ended up watching season upon season upon season. It had been quite a while since I actually watched South Park. I think I was still back in college actually, so I was very happy that the show was just as great as I remembered, especially the episodes Cartoon Wars and Cartman Joins Nambla. Cartman Joins Nambla is something weird, by the way. In case you didn't know, Nambla is a real and very terrifying organization. It's so much funnier when you know it's real and that these people do exactly that in real life. Oh boy. But another thing I remembered is just how much I like the character of Kenny McCormick. He doesn't get a lot of attention, he doesn't get a lot of discussion, and that's why he's perfect for character quests, so what are we waiting for? Let's get started, why don't we? Before we begin, I want to do a little bit of a fan art shout out, because yes, we're gonna keep doing this. Whenever we find some Media Mementos fan art, we're gonna shout it out and show it to you all, and if you don't care, skip to this time right here. This was made by NB, a very cartoonish look by the way, but I really like it. That's me right there, and then there's Billy, kind of that little puppet guy at the bottom. NB really captured my likeness here in this cartoon style and really captured Billy's. Exaggerated, but fun. Link to their Twitter and YouTube page in the description, so go ahead and give them some love, okay? Now, on to the video already in progress. First of all, the main reason that Kenny doesn't get a lot of attention is because he's in that quote-unquote mute character category. For those of you who don't know what that is, those are characters like Shelby Bitterman from Baby Blues, Ling Ling from Drawn Together, or Doomageddon from League of Super Evil. They're just there to fill up a character spot. They don't really get to do a whole lot. They're treated like props more often than not because they can't speak. Probably the biggest example of this character type is Maggie Simpson, where even though she's a member of the main family, there are only a handful of episodes that really give her a prominent role. Out of the many hundred, I'd say it's definitely in the low double digits. It's that bad. Kenny gets this too. In fact, series creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone wanted to kill Kenny off for real in season 6 because they didn't deem him as a necessary character. All he really had was the killing Kenny running gag, and that was starting to get stale. Back then, when you took it away from Kenny, he didn't have much to distinguish him from Cartman, Stan, or Kyle. Okay, maybe Cartman, but not Stan and Kyle. Sure, he was a little bit more on the edge than them, but not by much. It was after Kenny came back at the end of season 6 where he really started to get a set personality. From the beginning, Kenny was probably the most streetwise out of all the boys, the most knowledgeable about sex and also quite addicted to it, as well as the kind of guy that just loves shock value. While Cartman will do terrible things because he thinks that he's the good guy, Kenny will do terrible things purely for a reaction or just because he thinks it's funny, like taking his school picture where his butt is where his head should be, or basically anything in the episode Fat Camp, that kind of stuff. But through it all, Kenny's just kind of a relaxed, chill guy. It takes a lot to get on his nerves, and when you do get on his nerves, you'd better watch out. But he's laid back, he's easygoing, and he really likes hanging out with his friends, just like a normal boy his age. However, as mentioned earlier, he has a very, very strong appreciation for the female form. And even that's putting it mildly. Kenny's edgy humor derives from his love of sex. I mean, watch the episode The Ring and you'll see that 100% fully on display. Kenny is from a very poor family, as Cartman will be very, very happy to tell you about. That's because Kenny's dad, Stuart McCormick, is a good-for-nothing, lazy alcoholic, and his mom, Carol McCormick, is just too busy trying to keep the family together in order to get a job herself. Most of the time, it's kind of inconsistent, but through it all, they're just stuck. They're literally on the wrong side of the tracks in South Park. For Kenny, it's just a way of life. This is all he knows. Whenever he sees someone with a cool gadget or going to do some kind of cool experience, he can't really join in unless someone's paying his way. Does he let it get him down? No, not really. Only once or twice. The only two examples that are really prominent enough to mention are in the city side of town, where Kenny is tired of being broke and living in Soto Sopa, so he goes to City Walk and gets a job. However, he ends up spending this money on something else, but we'll discuss that later. Once again, Kenny is not gonna just simply whine and complain like his dad. Stuart's the kind of guy that will point at any rich person, especially his former childhood best friend Gerald Broflovsky, and say, hey, you don't deserve to be rich. I'm poor. Give me some of that money. I deserve it for doing nothing. Kenny will either accept the status quo or go out of his way to make it better. And then the other is the episode The Scoots, where because Kenny's too poor to afford an e-scooter, he's no longer allowed to go trick-or-treating with his friends. Kenny doesn't whine and complain about the fact that he doesn't have the latest gadget, kind of like Cartman does in Human Centipede. Instead, he's hurt because his friends don't want to trick-or-treat with him. In this broke life he's got, his friends are all he has, and now they're kind of kicking him to the curb. Just like Stan and Kyle, Kenny is a very loyal friend. In the earlier part of the show as well, he and Cartman are actually really close. Now let's be clear, Stan and Cartman are on iffy terms, and Kyle, I don't know why he hangs around with Cartman. I guess it's just a majority rules thing and he's outvoted, but still, they're far from friends. In the episode Kenny Dies, Cartman, while trying to manipulate the world into giving in to his stem cell research demand so he can make another Shakey's, says that Kenny is his best friend, and Kenny responds by saying the exact same thing about Cartman. Keep in mind, Kenny at this point is fully aware of everything Cartman's done. This is after the episode Scott Tinnerman Must Die. You remember what happens at the end of that episode? Even if he wasn't there to see it, I'm sure he found out later. I can't imagine anybody else except for Butters, who's too naive for his own good, to give Cartman this many chances. Again, all Kenny has is his friends. Well, actually his friends and his family. Of course, his dad isn't the best guy. We don't really get to see him interact with his brother all too much. His mom is kinda hit and miss. When she's sober, she's an okay mom, but when she's not, well, you'd better watch out. That leaves us with one family member left. Kenny's by far favorite, his little sister Karen, who wasn't in the show when Kenny was just kind of a prop. He was added later and gave Kenny a lot more personality. She doesn't appear all too often, but the effect that she leaves on Kenny's character is here to stay. I mentioned Cartman joins NAMBLA earlier, not just because it's one of my favorite episodes, but also because it's actually really important to Kenny's development. Even if it wasn't intentional, I'm not quite sure if it was, but it doesn't really matter, because the implications are here to stay. And they can't be denied in terms of the continuity of the show. In this episode, Kenny's parents say that they're gonna have another baby, and Kenny is doing everything possible to make sure that his mom does not give birth to that baby. Kenny's fear of having a little brother or sister stems from the fact that it's just gonna upend his life once again. They don't need more trouble, and he does not need to be looking after a baby. Besides, they're only gonna focus on the baby from now on, so that's gonna make him the middle child, and he's gonna be alone and forgotten, at least in his mind. And actually looking at his parents' track record, maybe they're right, or maybe none of them will get any attention and Kenny and Kevin will have to raise the baby on their own. This baby didn't turn out to be Karen, it ended up being Kenny again. But then in the episode The Poor Kid, way later on in the series, we're randomly introduced to Kenny's newfound little sister, Karen. And the internet knows this by now, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Kenny is one of the sweetest and most protective big brothers ever. He always stands up to help Karen whenever she's getting picked on, helps comfort her when she's sad. And you remember the city part of town where Kenny gets a job and ends up spending his money on something else aside from bills or food? He buys a doll for his little sister. Every penny he made went towards this nice little gesture for her. He's come a long way. Stan would never act this way towards Shelly, and if Cartman had a sibling, he'd probably eat them. The closest we get to this is Kyle and Ike. Ike idolizes Kyle, of course, and Kyle loves Ike for sure, but then he also plays Kick the Baby. There is no way Kenny would do that with his sister. So right off the bat, at 9 years old, he's already a family man. Good job, Kenny. Let's hope South Park likes all these traits about him, because Kenny is not going away anytime soon. One of the most, if not the most famous aspect of all of South Park is the fact that, at least in the earlier episodes, Kenny would die all the time. Again, this joke was later semi-retired because it got super old super quickly and the creators were running out of new ways to kill Kenny in every episode. That and the fact that it also kind of stunted Kenny's development. Given the fact he doesn't speak, he's already at a disadvantage and everything about his personality has to be gleaned through actions and implications. But getting rid of him in the third act would also limit his screen time and thus potential. Anyways, the reason for that is because Kenny McCormick is an immortal being. His parents went to a cult meeting and lo and behold, their child ended up becoming immortal. No matter how many times he dies, no matter how gruesome the death is, he will always wake up in his bed the next morning as if nothing ever happened. And the only people that remember his deaths are his family. And the only reason that his parents remember is because his mom has to give birth to him every single time. And then the baby will just grow into Kenny when he last died, and there he goes, he can resume life again. And Kenny hates this. In the Coon and Friends 3-parter, we finally get to see Kenny's take on it, albeit in his Mysterion guise, but it's still Kenny nonetheless. Some people would see this as an amazing superpower or an advantage that they gotta use to its full potential. Kenny doesn't like this. He would much rather either stay dead or be a normal boy than have this random ability, even if it does help save the day in the end. And it's never gonna stop. Kenny's gonna keep dying and dying and dying, and he will never, ever go away. So yes, he could be old and sick on his deathbed and die, and then come back, and then die and come back forever. Not even COVID could keep him down, although the timeline definitely did change, so there is that. Kenny goes on to be a world-famous scientist. You know what? I can see it. Tired of being poor and disadvantaged as well as being the butt of all of Cartman's jokes, Kenny decided to make something of himself and is now one of the most successful people in all of South Park, Colorado. However, judging by his attire, he's still a party guy. You know, with the shirt and the shaggy beard and the shades and all. Again, I can see it. It's Kenny after all, he's definitely gonna chase after that stuff once he's older. Heck, he's already chasing after that stuff now in the 4th grade. So there's Kenny for you. A guy who's been dealt a lot of bad hands in life and just rolls with it. He loves his friends and his family, especially his little sister, and he goes on to change the world. That there is Kenny McCormick, definitely one of the more underrated members of the South Park cast. This might not be the last South Park character quest we do, but I can definitely say that Kenny was the best choice to be the first. Well folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? Who's your favorite character in South Park? What's your favorite Kenny death? Comment below and let me know because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Real quick, I'd like to thank our Patreon executive producers, Leaf Razor, Azarius, Woopdoo, Michaela Bellamy, MD the Dude, and Blackjack. If you too would like your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then consider donating to our Patreon, which has a link in the description below. But we're not done yet, it's time for the comment of the day. Today's comment of the day goes to XDYT. It's rare that I ever say that I completely agree with every single word in a video review, but I agree with every single word in this video. Well said. I've always said that Moral Orel was the most underrated Western animated series of all time. It's great to find an up-and-coming YouTube review channel that feels the same way, and is willing and eager to boost the show's profile. It's never too late to hope for Season 4. You know Dino Statomopoulos would jump at it if it were possible. You know, that's really true. I don't necessarily think Orel's gonna be revived, but you never know. This is the day and age of reboots where everything's getting continued, so it's possible, and there's a lot to go off of. Adult Swim will actually know where the show's going if it gets brought back. But yeah, thank you so much for your kind words, and I hope you enjoy your comment of the day. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you guys next time!